This meeting is combined regular meeting and planning session. The next item on our agenda, or the first item on our agenda under the revised agenda format, is the monthly presentation on student achievement. We have the folks from Lancaster Elementary School, and I believe Mrs. Palmer is going to introduce the subject. Good evening. Maura.
Thank you very much, Mr. Campbell. It's my pleasure to welcome the Lancaster community with us this evening. Mr. Pagliarulo is here with a couple of members of the staff, which he will introduce. They're going to speak to you tonight about an event that I believe has become near and dear to the hearts of the staff at Lancaster as well as the students. It's the second year of something they call the big event. It's a break from the regular routine just before vacation, but full of climate and culture, along with some learning for the students. So Mr. Pagliarulo will start us off this evening.
Thank you, Mrs. Palmer. Welcome everybody at home. Welcome school board members and central office staff. Congratulations to Mr. Carney and Mrs. Berry on their recent success at the polls. Welcome back to the school board. As Mrs. Palmer summarized, I'm here tonight to talk about Big Event 2. So it was our second crack at the big event. Learned some lessons from the first one and repeated it a second time this year. And we're pretty proud of the results and hope that you'll get a flavor for what the big event looked like at Lancaster this year. Just to introduce the idea a little bit, I think it's important to know that that came out of our staff council. So the staff council is an advisory group that meets with me on a regular basis. We talk about problems that might emerge at the school, but primarily it's a community building / problem solving kind of organization that helps to address issues that come up at Lancaster. Last year, the notion of a spring fling, which used to occur at Lancaster well before I started there, and it had gone away, came up. We talked about the benefits of it, and that's what grew into the big event. So the idea was to have a community building activity that brought the school together. And it was supposed to be similar to the experiences that we had in our field day. So we've always run field day in the springtime. Our process has typically been to take all of the kids, mix them up into multi-grade level teams, and put them together for field day activities that are outside or scheduled throughout the building. And after field day, we had always said it's such a wonderful opportunity for kids to get to know kids that they don't typically interact with on a regular basis because of the cross grade levels, that we wanted to replicate that in an academic environment as well. So we knew that there were going to be some challenges with that, but the opportunity to talk with kids about growth mindsets and to use peers that might be older as role models for our younger students was an important component of pulling this all together. So I asked the teachers and staff to start thinking about some courses that they might be able to offer that were a little bit outside the box, things that they were passionate about, and they could communicate that passion to the kids. So, our process was guided by that theory, and we did have some paraprofessionals that stepped up and offered some mini courses as well. The teachers proposed these mini courses that would run for about 90 minutes. They submitted. The guideline was sort of to make sure it was minimal cost implication, things that we could do on the cheap, but on the fun. Teachers identified the number of kids that they could accommodate and the location needs that they had for the kind of courses that they were offering. Then we created a Google form and pushed that out to the students. So it was very much a course selection process where all that data came in. I had some help from Mrs. Payne to help sort those course requests, and essentially the kids from a list of I think it was 16 different course possibilities, they chose the 4 that were the most interesting to them, and they prioritized them. Mrs. Payne helped me to sort those kids into classes that met the course requirements in terms of numbers and locations. And all of the kids in the building had 2 of their 4 most preferred courses. We had an AM session. We took a break for lunch, and then we had a PM session in the afternoon where some of the courses were repeated and some of the courses were new courses that only ran once. We had courses that ranged from, or that was supposed to range anyway, from snowshoeing. That was one of the courses that was offered, but we didn't have snow at the time, so it became a scavenger hunt. Last year, when we took the first crack at the big event, it was sort of a mud snowshoeing kind of activity because the snow was about the same as we are right about now. We had an Olympic fever course where kids simulated Olympic events within the building. Just a lot of community building opportunities. We had a sign language course that ran, a coding course that you'll hear more about in a little bit, a couple of arts courses, weaving, mandala art, and Zentangle drawing. We had a board game group where kids created their own and played some common board games. We had yoga courses. We had dancing and sensory sort of exploratory courses. So there were plenty of things to choose from, and you'll get a chance to see some of those in a video that we've prepared as well. But to talk a little bit more about the teacher perspective of the big event, I brought a couple of friends with me this evening. You'll hear from Amy Chartrain, one of our tech integrators, and Kristen McLaughlin, a 4th grade teacher. After Mrs. McLaughlin speaks, then you'll be able to see the video. I'll address any questions that the board has after that. So, Mrs. Chartrain.
Good evening. When I heard that the big event was happening again at Lancaster School this year, I knew I wanted to be a part of it. It all started this December and January when I worked with Miss Farley and Miss Karen to run a coding club for mostly 4th and 5th grade students at Lancaster. This coding club, which was sponsored by Google, students used Scratch to code their own interactive stories and animations. Being a part of the big event would be an opportunity to extend the excitement of learning how to code to even more students. So at the big event, students became programmers in training as they participated in the session I ran called What's the Code? And they learned all about coding, but this time they were using Scratch Junior, which is on the iPads. And Scratch Junior was a perfect fit for the big event as students created their own interactive stories, animations, and games. It really all seemed more like play than a lesson on computer science and programming, where students developed skills in sequencing, critical thinking, and problem solving. The kids that participated in What's the Code were also given a sneak peek into some of the STEM program for next school year. As part of the STEM initiative here in Salem, through the Project Lead the Way curriculum, 2nd graders will be introduced to Scratch Junior in 2nd grade. The best part of the big event was being able to work with many different students across grade levels all in one session. I had students that had participated in the coding club with Miss Farley, Miss Karen, and myself. I had some students that maybe had explored Scratch or different coding on their own. And I had students that had never used coding before, but they just wanted to try. Kindergarten through 5th grade worked side by side, mentoring each other, sharing ideas, asking lots of questions. It was an active room full of chatter and lots of laughs, but that was really what the big event is all about, exploring something new, asking questions, and maybe making a new friend. Just a couple of my favorite moments from that day to illustrate. In my afternoon session, I had a kindergartner who she was really shy and hesitant at first. But at the end of the 90-minute session, she was determined to not only show one of her projects, but she had 2 animations she wanted to share with the group. And she really wanted to show off that girls could code too. And then the second illustration of what a great day it was, I had a student that was also part of our coding club in December and January. The student often struggled at times with Scratch, which is more advanced than Scratch Junior, and they would often leave the club feeling a little bit frustrated. So Scratch Junior was a great fit. The student was able to apply skills they learned with Scratch. They were then sharing their tips and tricks with other students, and their excitement for the program was contagious. And soon a para-educator in the room, I looked over and she had picked up an iPad and she was trying to code on her own, and she was laughing and had a huge smile, and it made me laugh because her son's an engineering major in college. So I told her what a great example this was. But throughout this event, students were able to make connections and have the opportunity to hopefully understand what it means to be a community of learners and how that extends beyond our individual classroom walls. For me, the opportunity to work with staff and students as part of their school community was an invaluable experience. As the district technology integrator, it can be hard to feel a part of a school community because I'm not in the same building every day. So being part of the big event was my opportunity to join the Lancaster family, be a part of the team, and share my love of learning and technology while having fun. And I was truly accepted as Lancaster as one of their own for the day. As an adult and a child, it is important to make these connections and feel as if you belong as we all learn and grow together. And now, Kristen, Mrs. McLaughlin, will give her perspective.
Hi. So one of the things that I love most about the big event is the opportunity that as staff members we get to work with one another with people that we may not have the opportunity to work with on a daily basis. For the past 2 years, I've worked with Kim DeZazzo in 3rd grade, and our course is called All Stressed Out. Our course focused on the zones of regulations and strategies students can use when presented with challenging situations. We broke our course into 3 components, beginning with a discussion with the students on what they already knew about the zones of regulation and what the different zones were. Students had varying degrees of the zones of regulation, so it was really nice to see the kids that had more experience with it helping out and explaining it to the younger students in their own words. To support part of this activity, we showed a few animated clips of characters or people in each of the different zones, and then asked the students to share what zones the students thought the people were in and what they could do to get back into the green zone. Some of them were pretty funny, so the kids got a kick out of that. From there, we moved on to the hands-on portion of our workshop. Last year, we made stress balls with the students, and this year we made calming bottles, both of which could be tools to help students who are feeling a little frustrated move back into that green zone. Students worked collaboratively across the grade levels to complete the task. Older students took it upon themselves to be the leaders and help the younger students, whether it be reading the directions, helping with materials, or just following the steps. And the younger students really enjoyed pairing up with a student that they may not necessarily know and enjoyed being partners with them. The final portion of our workshop, we were gave the students a task designed to specifically frustrate them so that they would feel a little frustrated and they could practice the skills that they had used. For example, some of them had to try to make a house of cards, some had to stack cups from 1 to 100 in a certain amount of time, and others had to create a paper airplane to see how far it could go. When students felt frustrated, we asked them what they could do, and they shared what zone they were feeling they were in and what they could do as a strategy. If they were unsure, students that they were working with also helped them out with that. We wrapped up our 90-minute course with just a little activity to reinforce what the students had learned by playing an M&M game. The M&Ms had been carefully sorted into the same colors of the zones of regulation. Students took an M&M, had to say what zone they were in, what they were feeling, and how they could get out of that zone. From a staff perspective, I have to reiterate what Amy said. It's just such a wonderful opportunity not only to work with the other staff members in the building, but also to meet students in other grade levels and form a connection with them. It's nice now to be able to talk to the younger students out on the playground, or if you see them in the hall, and actually know them by name and being able to have a conversation with them. For students, based on the feedback that we got from them, the big event isn't just a day of fun. They're being exposed to things that they may not necessarily be exposed to otherwise. But most importantly for staff and students, it's a day of community, and it's all about building those relationships and strengthening existing relationships, and overall strengthening our Lancaster community.
Thank you.
This is our second go-around for the big event. Big event 2 was this year, and our plan was simply to build off a sort of classroom community kind of deal, or a school community program. I very much wanted it to be teacher generated, so the assignment to the teachers was for them to just think about something that they had some experience with. It could be outside the box, things that kids might not typically have an opportunity to do or try, and just put it out there.
I'm Kayla Daly. I teach 5th grade, and I did Are You a Cake Boss? Kids learned how to make their own homemade buttercream frosting, and then they decorated their own cupcake with frosting, sprinkles, and decorations, and then they, of course, ate it. I am an avid baker. I love baking cupcakes, so I wanted to share that with my kids and other kids in different grades, which was really great.
Hi, my name is Aiden. I'm in the 3rd grade. I did coding. We made games, and we could make little clips of animals, people, and little cars and stuff. And you could make them do crazy things, flip upside down, and do all different things. I made a pig doing like 13 backflips.
My name is Jason Duckett, and I am in 5th grade.
My name is Gavin Husson, and I am in 2nd grade.
I did snowshoeing, but it was changed to a scavenger hunt because there was no snow.
We were trying to find clues, and we found clues, and we did certain kinds of like jumping jacks and stuff like that.
Each and every clue, we'd have to go to a certain spot, and it would tell us an activity. So we'd have to do like this activity like jumping jacks or push-ups.
I knew of Mr. Griffiths and Explorations as an outside company. He was interested in doing some work with the schools in Salem, and this was a perfect way to get his foot in the door and get us some experience with the Explorations program. So he came in and he ran Boo Bubbles in the morning, and the kids learned about bubbles and dry ice and nitrogen and lots of scientific components that go into building those bubbles. And in the afternoon he ran a show about lasers, and the kids got to experiment with light and color and refraction and reflection. So some really good STEM kind of connections where the kids were able to generate some questions and try and experiment with the equipment that Mr. Griffiths brought. I think having the opportunity to be so hands-on with all of those kids was a wonderful thing. Just lots of opportunities to play, but it was also purposeful, and the kids came away learning a little bit about science and a little bit about light and bubbles and all the things that go into it.
My name's Anna Karen. I teach 5th grade, and I was helping lead the Wheelie Awesome Bike Workshop. We had a group of kids, and we split them in half. One half of the kids were working on actual bikes, fixing when the chain falls off, adjusting seats, checking brake pads, and inflating and deflating tires to make sure the PSI was correct. And then the other half was in a discussion-based group talking about bike safety, playing games with signaling and learning how to pass and whatnot. And then they switched, and then we all came back together and made commercials about bike safety.
My name is Chloe, and I'm in 2nd grade. I did Can You Feel the Beat with Mrs. McNary. We made slime, we made Play-Doh, we made maracas, and we did dance parties.
Hi, I'm Megan, and I'm in the 3rd grade. Today I did board games with some of my friends. So we made board games together, we played board games together, we watched a video of how not to be a sore loser and cry and stuff like that.
Hi, my name's Shannon Farley. I teach 4th grade at Lancaster, and myself and Emma Higgins did a yoga session for the big event this year. We've done it in years past, And during the event, the kids come, grades K through 5, and we walk them through a yoga session and then a craftivity to kind of go along with our messages for the day. Today's activities were all about being mindful about yourself, others, your community, and the world, and how we can bring peace and happiness and hope to all those that are around us.
As I mentioned earlier, we had two sessions, a morning group and an afternoon group. After each of the mini courses, the kids went back to their homerooms and spent some time doing some reflection and some letter writing. So they wrote letters to new friends that they met as part of the big event that were in the same courses, and we mailed them to each other through our We Deliver program. So that there was that was a bit of the follow-up piece or the conclusionary pieces to wrapping up the big event. We realized or we knew it would happen, but we were happy to see that kids that struggle either academically or maybe socially or maybe behaviorally on a regular basis during the day found a whole lot of success. I'm sure it's tied to they had some choice over the activities that they were able to do, but as teachers we're also thinking about how we can use that as we plan our lessons and move the kids forward now that we have them back in class. I want to say a very special thank you to Brianna Demers. She's an intern with Scott Broadman. Brianna helped with the video, really produced the video herself, did an amazing job. She was awesome to work with from go to tonight. She did a great job helping us to pull this all together, so thank you, Brianna. At this time, I'll take any questions from members of the board or members of the office staff.
Thank you very much. Start with board members. Dr. Corbin.
Thank you. First, thank you for coming. This was wonderful. What I'm struck with is last year I remember Lancaster Stars very well, and that was such a community building effort that you had, and now you've shown us another one. So I really love that you're focusing on that, and I think that's just wonderful. And I always compliment the teachers because anything that's outside your usual day I know is a lot of work. And so thank you for that. I did have a couple of questions.
Sure.
One was if the age groups were mixed, and you answered that. How long was each session, and what was the maximum that you could have in each session?
It was each mini course was 90 minutes, and then depending on the course and what was required to run it, depended on the number of kids in the class. So we had, I think 32 was our biggest. That was the Boo Bubbles and the lasers. We used our cafeteria for that space, so we had a little more flexibility. And then we had, I think our smallest course was 12 kids, and that was a weaving course, and the process for the weaving and the setup for the weaving was a little more involved. So we had to make sure it was first appropriate for the kids, but also manageable for the staff that would be in there working with the kids at the time.
Great. I'm just dying to know, what was your session that you offered?
I was a floater because I wanted to be part of all of the classes.
Good save
Yes.
on that one. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Carney.
First of all, I want to thank the staff for being so creative with these subjects. It sounds like you offered quite a wider range that covered many, many different interests. But you touched upon something I was going to ask about, is what did the staff learn, and what are you going to do to maybe incorporate what they learned or what they saw in the everyday classroom?
The one thing that amazes me is when teachers tell me that Lancaster is a big place, right? So we've had staff that came over from Hague when the Hague School closed, and they can't believe how big Lancaster is, which it doesn't feel big to me at all. It feels small. And I know that there are staff members that work on the second floor that struggle to interact with staff members that work on the first floor. Just the flow of the day doesn't promote that mixture very well. So this was one opportunity to allow Mrs. McLaughlin to work with a fourth grade teacher and a third grade teacher to work together, or a kindergarten teacher and a fourth grade teacher to work together in other courses. Having the teachers the chance to plan and interact in that way was important and part of that community building. And then the conversations that happened between the teachers who have kids that are, we might want to watch, or we want to make sure that they have things in place to make sure that they're successful. Those conversations generated other ideas about how to best serve those kids in the classes. And like I said, it surprised us how engaged they were, how we didn't see some of the common problems that we see on maybe on a day-to-day, but being open to the idea of integrating student choice more into what they do day-to-day, whether it's what they're reading or the way that they're approaching their mathematics. Those are lessons that we can learn from the big event and expand upon to provide better opportunities for kids.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Porter?
Did I understand every student in the school participated in this? So you're seeing results where students who are inclined not to be involved in group activities like that are now more comfortable with that?
I think, Gavin, one of the students that spoke on the video, Gavin was afraid of older kids. He just called them big kids, and didn't want to be with the big kids. It didn't matter where they were. He was going someplace else. But now he's got buddies that are big kids. And really, to see kids coming and going from lunch and saying, "Hey, I remember you from the big event," that's what makes it worthwhile, and why it was such a great community event.
Sounds like good things come out of that.
Feels like it.
Thank you, Adam, very much.
Sure.
Any comments, Dr. Delahanty, Mrs.
Yes.
Palmer?
Thank you, Mr. Campbell. So, as I sit here, I think, how is it that people acquire skills and talents and capacities that they then want to share or can share with students? And it's a result of being interested in something. And while we all can't be interesting people, we know interesting people, and not all of us are interesting or think we're interesting. All of us can be interested. And I'm struck by your interests being shared with students, never knowing what the tipping point might be for a student who suddenly has an experience that is motivating or inspiring or encouraging to pursue more understanding or more knowledge or acquire more of a capacity in respect to that. So baking, for example, the baking cupcakes. Now that's something I would have wanted to do. And then perhaps I'd be a better baker. Students that are coding perhaps are our next engineering students or computer science students, because they acquire, or the gentleman that came in and taught about light and physics and refraction and reflection. But I don't want to lose the fact, so that's a great opportunity for the kids, but for all of you to take so much time. We have to appreciate the amount of time that it takes to plan for that length of time and to keep kids engaged for that length of time. It's a lot of work, and I appreciate that Mrs. Payne participated and helped out and helped organize and do some of the work that otherwise would have been that manual labor that made this all happen. There are a number of Lancaster staff here, and I want to thank them. I want to thank Mrs. Chartrine, Mrs. McLaughlin for being here and sharing your experience and your thoughts, and Mr. Pagliarulo. Wouldn't have happened without good leadership. So, and Brianna for her excellent video. But thank you so much for turning out to the staff and for everything you did to make this event happen, and for all of the benefits that come as a result. So, wonderful job. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's great.
Thanks.
Thank you, and thank you to the Lancaster community for putting this forward and bringing this to our community and to our vast audience who watches us. But thank you all very much. And I know you have school tomorrow, and you're probably not real interested in the rest of our agenda, so you're certainly free to depart and prepare for tomorrow. So thank you. Thank you very much.
This has been a Salem School District Media Services presentation.